Hey guys, thank you for watching me. My name is VaulSC. I'm going to be looking at Game 2 of an ITS tournament I played last weekend where I was running Shasvastii at the Bio-Heist tournament in Hamilton, New Zealand. And I was running, obviously, Shasvastii, and the mission for Game 2 was CounterMeasures, and I ran into a YuJing opponent for this mission. As I mentioned in my opening video, going through the preparation of the event and what I brought and what the missions were, I would have mentioned to you that countermeasures was one of the missions and that I didn't particularly like countermeasures, and one of my, I'll just go back to it and reiterate why, and that is that although you do have a lot of games where the card draw is interesting, both players have very provocative, interesting, difficult decisions to make, which turns into a really enjoyable game for both players. The price you pay for that and the cost of that is that there's always going to be a certain non-zero percentage of games where one player plays really well but is just completely shafted by the bad card draw, constantly being given the cards which are difficult to achieve, whereas the other person just has the easy objectives fall straight into their lap. And unfortunately, that factor is not very good for competitive play in ITS, sadly. But this game is going to be my first actual real attempt at countermeasures, so we'll get to see what the mission plays like for me personally. Now, I'm running up against an opponent who actually started at the same time I did back in 2015, and I actually played a couple of games with him when I was brand new, and we had some battles back then. Of course, he sort of fell out of the scene a bit and started doing other things and didn't really get involved for a while, and now he's just coming back. So although there is that, I'm much more experienced at the game than him because I've been playing, solidly for 4 or 5 years, where he hasn't had the same experience. So we will see in this game that my opponent will be making some mistakes due to just lack of, that practice, and his army list isn't particularly competitive in my view. However, that will be counteracted by me also making some mistakes in this game and also having some shockingly bad luck. So it will turn out to be a close game, which comes right down to the wire. So I hope you do watch the whole thing. Quick look at the list that he's written, and on the day he just said to me straight up, I am running this YuJing list because it will be easier for me to remember what guys do and play the list. I don't want to take a big army list with lots of different kinds of troopers with lots of different kinds of abilities, and that's specifically why he's gone this way. We've got a Xian Lieutenant HMG with no chain of command. Yanhuo missile launchers, pretty easy to just sit it there and shoot. Rushi with Spitfire. It's a double up with a Xian warrior, but at least, he knows what MSV2 does. You've got a Celestial Guard control device without even taking any Guangxi, but that's his way of getting smoke into the list without bothering with the Shaolin monks. I think we can all agree that maybe just one Shaolin monk might have been a better way to do that, but at least he's not impetuous. He's got 3 drop troopers, 1 YuJing and 2 tiger soldiers. I can't remember the exact loadouts of these guys. I'm pretty sure it's this though. Specialist operative YuJing, multi-rifle plus 2 tiger soldier paramedics, if I recall correctly. Bounty hunter sniper for an additional bit of AROs, why not? Sensorbot, quite a useful specialist. I think that his spec ops was Doctor Engineer Hacker plus 1 whip. I can't 100% remember. I know it must have been at least a hacker because otherwise he wouldn't have been able to have remotes in his list. And then, of course, probably a helper bot at the back there. So this may not be exactly what he had, but it's pretty close. Let's now jump into the game and talk about what happened. So I do remember managing to get first turn, which is what I wanted for this mission. I wanted to be able to be the first one to control which objectives I was going to be collecting and leaving the more difficult ones for my opponent to try and do. Of course, you can discard one every turn, but if there are 2 or 3 there that are difficult for your opponent to do, well, they can only discard one of them. So you give them a disadvantage right off the bat. So first turn's pretty good. The table, though, is a bit of an awkward one, an interesting one, and we were talking about this during the event, that it is very open. So the table zone on the right-hand side, this is where Shasvastii is setting up, and then on the left-hand side, that's where we've got our vanilla YuJing list over here. So I'm going first. I've created a screen of these tiger creatures around here, roundabouts and around the back. I've got my 3 HVTs, one there, one here, and the other one I think is just further towards the side of the table. There's a shrouded assault hacker up on top of the building. The plan is to move over through the middle and hopefully hack some of his HVTs, or at least stop the Xian Warrior or the Rushi from coming through this side. Not that I know what's in his list, I just have a, it's a strong suspicion that he could have some hackable stuff here. Shishkin and the Link team will be towards the middle, and I'll have the Mentor and a couple of drones around the right-hand side. Similarly with the left-hand side, a couple of cheerleading drones. Alrighty, so this is the left-hand deployment. You can in fact see that line of Tiger creatures out the front, and just a couple of bots on the left, a Link team in the center. The Link team is rather spread out, so you've got Shishkin right bang in the middle here. The T-drone just taking total cover for now. It's going to move out later. We've got a Fort Observer here, Tencho back over here, Spec Ops right next to Shishkin, because he's going to need to revive Shishkin if she goes down. Conveniently positioned. Extreme right-hand flank, you can see the Mentor there, plus the ambush camera marker there. I'm hoping that he might, not really understand it as a Mentor, and this marker might deter things from coming around over here too quickly and easily. Noctifer out in plain sight rather than hidden deployment, because I want the Noctifer to be contributing a +1 order to my turn without having to spend an order on the Noctifer. That's going to be important. And there's the what do you call this guy, shrouded assault hacker on the top of the building. My opponent is setting up here with a bounty sniper hunter on the building. There's going to be a Yanhuo reserve trooper going down at that spot. The Celestial Guard is going to be next to him. The Spec Ops is going to be at the back. The Sensor Bot over here. Xian Warrior Lieutenant prone behind this building with the Rushi over this side. And then, of course, all of the drop troopers off the table. There's one HVT over this side and another one way in the corner if you can spot it there. And I believe the third one is tucked in here as well. So most of the action is going to be happening on this side of the table. His left, my right. Just an overview look where you can see those two HVTs on either side of that ramp. And the close-up at the back. He's got that Yao Zhao helper bot on the roof there with the bounty hunter. He initially considered that and then I think moved it, just because he wasn't sure if he wanted it there. My reserve trooper is, of course, the Caliban with MSV-1 Spitfire deployed here, so that it can move up here and take out things in close combat. And all he's going to really be able to do is discover long range, and that is if he has things watching this side of the table, which he may not. And if he does have stuff watching, I may just be able to shoot it with the Spitfire before moving in. His reserve trooper, of course, is the big golden, the double gun, the missile launcher Neurosynetics, facing out towards the position of the Shishkin and her Link team. Okay, so just adding some prone markers to people and just showing you the position of that Yanhuo. Alright, data tracker, that is going to be Shishkin. So because she's a character, she counts as, I think, an elite trooper or whatever it is. So there are some missions where that's possible. Also, she has decharges, so she can complete sabotage. And she can complete like coup de grace style classifieds as well. This is a surprising high number of classifieds that she can do, and because she's going to be so proactive and powerful, that's the plan really for picking up that bonus 2 objective points. Okay, so starting with Impetuous first, the Tiger creatures moving up on this side of the table don't actually get shot, because the Bounty Hunter and the Yanhuo are covering this line only. There's this building at the top which for some reason is obscuring their line of sight, so I actually have a pathway around the side here, which is even better, because even though my Caliban's going to be moving up soon, the Tiger creature can actually move in on his position, as we're about to see. This one in the center, not so lucky though, having to go up against the Sniper and the Yanhuo, and is just obliterated with an arrow right off the bat. This one over here, I decided to spend an order on him, just restraining him, and the other one just moving up and not quite getting into line of sight, so these guys are at least okay. However, on the right-hand flank, you can see here we've got a Celestial Guard control device facing the wrong way for some reason, and the Yanhuo is through here on the other side of this building. So I'm able to move in with a Tiger creature. That forces a change facing / reset. The Bounty Hunter top is prone, as you can see. Just can't see down past this part of the building, this pyramid here. The ziggurat, whatever you call it. And then I'm just able to use the second one to come around here. And what that'll allow me to do is just berserk straight into close combat, kill that model right off the bat, force this guy to turn around. I believe I get shot by something in the end. Actually, because it's a berserk, the Celestial Guard can actually attack me back. And what happens here is the Celestial Guard dies, and the Tiger creature is put unconscious. Now, what I should have probably taken a photo of, and I apologize for not getting an accurate picture of this, is the actual, the most important part, the classified objectives that have been dealt. So my apologies for not including that information. All I can tell you at this point is that we start the game with the objective where you have to coup de grace an enemy model, and I think with a +3 willpower check or something like that, and you get an objective point if you remove them that way. Secondarily, move up close to the HVT with some kind of specialist and do something with the enemy HVT. And the third one I can't quite remember. There was one that I obviously removed and we both found difficult to do, even with the second one coming in. So more information on that later. But as you can see, I've left a tiger creature unconscious next to his Yan Huo. So if I don't complete the classified that will coup de grace an enemy unconscious trooper, he'll be able to do it very easily to me. So I need to move the Caliban in and achieve that right off the bat. So Caliban is able to move up. He's a marker, so it's quite easy for him to move to this spot here, then move to this spot here, and avoid the angle of the Yan Huo. We'll get to the Yan Huo later. So you can see the position of the Caliban right there. You can see what I want to do. He wants to move through here and destroy the Spec Ops. That's the data tracker, so we want to remove that first. Then we want to move in and pick off this sensor bot, because it's an easy killing, right? You know, you've got cover, you've got a Spitfire, you've got 4 dice. How hard could it be? That guy dies. Then you come back for the Yan Huo by shooting him first. Then you're going into close combat, taking out 1 wound at a time, and just removing him and basically crippling the YuJing army and going up +1 classified right from the bat, right off the bat. So here we are. I'm just moving in now. Because the Celestial Guard is not prone, this is the Spec Ops, mind you, he does block line of sight to the bot. So I'm carefully moving in and shooting just the Celestial Guard first. Without coming into close combat, I felt like the Spitfire was the way to go. I didn't want to be bogged down there, and I didn't want to come too far around the corner. So this position is, I believe, not quite where he actually was. I ended up pulling him back a little bit. But initially, the Caliban does get the shots off on his guard here, and his data tracker, his Spec Ops, and that dies, which means that it's going to be harder for him to do a lot of these classified objectives, and he can't revive his own doctor because that's the only doctor he's got. Apart from paramedic drop troopers, but we'll talk about that later. So after this guy is attacked, and you know this photo is showing the true position of the model, that's going to destroy the Spec Ops. But then I'm getting a bit greedy and moving around to also take on the sensor bot, which has had a chance to change face, dodge, move around now. So the Caliban goes after the sensor bot and sprays it with 4 dice, MSV1 Spitfire, I think retaining cover, that kind of thing. And he responds with a flash pulse, which wins the face-to-face roll miraculously. And I fail my BTS check, and my Caliban's now blinded deep into enemy territory, which was, as you can imagine, really anger-inducing. And, you know, I got a little bit greedy there. I didn't have to attack the spot, but, you know, why wouldn't you? I suppose if you're going to take a really safe approach, you just go directly for the prize, but equally the Yan Huo could also shoot the Caliban. It's just so unlikely at these range bands with the tech you've got. So the problem here is that I can't attack for the rest of the turn. I'm deep into enemy territory. He's going to be able to move something to kill the Caliban when it's his turn, and he's going to be able to go to the corpse of that tiger creature and destroy it with the coup de grace to gain the classified that I was supposed to get. So this game's taken a really, really bad turn all of a sudden. So I'm thinking, okay, I might just go for a little bit of a risk here, a calculated risk, and do something I was considering doing anyway. And that is to activate Shishkin. She's prone at the moment. She's going to move out here where she'll have line of sight to the Yan Huo with 2 missile launches. And then she'll pull back. And she'll do it in such a way that the missile has to impact around about here. And it won't actually catch the Spec Ops in the blast template. If I'm within good range, that's 18's to hit on 5 dice versus, I think, it's going to be 11's to hit on 2 dice because he's going to be less than 24 inches away with his missile launches. So it's very likely I'll win, and if I get unlucky and he does manage to get 1 hit through, well, Shishkin, as long as she passes at least 1 armor save, I'm going to be able to revive Shishkin. So it's a little bit risky. If he rolls a crit, or if he somehow manages to win the face-to-face roll with 2 missiles impacting, Shishkin could die in a way that she's not recoverable. But I decided to go for it because I had a bunch more orders left in the turn. What I could potentially do here is destroy the Yan Huo, or push him back, or move forward, and then kill the bounty hunter sniper, and put him in a position where the Caliban might be able to hold out for a while. It might make it pretty hard for him to go after the Caliban. So I'm trying this. Now, it does turn out to be that that Shishkin's a little bit out of range. So she's -3 to hit for long range. So 18s, I think it is. No. 18 ballistic skill for being in the Link team, -3 for range, -3 for cover, netting 12s to hit on 5 dice, critting on either 12s or 1s, and the Yanhuo hitting just straight 14s on 2 dice. Now, I lose the face-to-face roll, terrible luck there, and have to make 3 armor saves because he's one of the dice, one of the missiles has got through. Shishkin only has to pass one of them, and I'll be okay because I can revive her with the Doctor. Now, I realized I'd made a bit of a mistake because my calculations here, my thought process, I thought, well, passing one of the armor saves is going to be okay because Shishkin's got +1 armor plus the nanoscreen. Then I realized to my horror as I was rolling the armor saves, hang on, I'm not going to get the nanoscreen because the template of the missile is going to negate any armor bonus from cover because it's a template. So I roll all 3 dice and all of them fail and Shishkin's just vaporized. Which, as you can imagine, I was feeling a little bit hot under the collar, really demoralized by that and sort of steaming to lose Shishkin that way. Now, to be fair, I took some risks and I made a minor miscalculation there, and that's on me. That's my fault. That's something I could have controlled. But, you play this over and over and over again, and most of the time, Shishkin's either going to win the face-to-face roll, because she's critting on 40% of the time, or she's just winning it outright, 5 dice on 12s, or she's at least passing one of the armor saves and you can revive her and move on with the game. So sadly that's not happened, and if I wasn't in a bad situation in this game already, it's now gotten really, really bad. My opponent is a less experienced player. He will be making some mistakes in this game, but if I'd been up against somebody who just knew infiNity inside out and was able to punish my every little, problem, then this would just be a lost game right here. So Shishkin dead, Link team broken. Desperately trying something here, and that is to go with the Noctifer against the Yanhuo, because again, if I can establish a nice position here by at least eliminating the Yanhuo, which is very close to the Caliban's position, and try and sort of get myself into a better spot, that'd be worth it. I'm also sort of tilting here and making decisions that aren't really the best at this point, just because I'm feeling really angry. So Noctifer goes at it, goes for the Yanhuo. He's up against cover, Tio Camo, surprise shot. So I've got a big advantage, even though it's 1 dice versus 2, but Noctifer whiffs it, doesn't get the hit in. And then the second attempt at it, the Yanhuo actually wins, and Noctifer dies as well. So Shishkin's obliterated, the Noctifer's obliterated, the Caliban's blinded in enemy territory. He's about to pick up a classified point from that, and I'm like, I hate this game. But we all have those moments, don't we? Alright, YuJing turn 1. First thing he does is he moves the Yanhuo over here with nothing shooting at him, of course, because all my stuff's dead. And does remove the corpse of the tiger creature to gain a +1 classified objective, which is the one where you coup de grace the guy. Then he moves his Sensorbot around here, for some reason not going after the Caliban, but going to just cover the table with his Flash Pulse ARO for some reason. And to be fair, Shishkin and the Noctifer are dead, so you can do whatever you want. If I'd been him, I probably would have considered firing my combi rifle at the Caliban. Caliban does have, you can just crack back it with a pistol, and he's got MSV1, good range, and he's got camouflage. But you've got 3 dice, good range with the combi rifle, so it's a pretty good go. Or maybe just standing up with a Shen warrior and walking around there would be another way to do it. Or even climbing downstairs with the bounty hunter. You can do whatever you want. Caliban does have kinematica and a pretty good way of dodging in and engaging in close combat, so that might have happened, but he decided not to go for that at this point. He then brings in one of the Tiger Soldiers on the side of the table, and I'm making another mistake here where I'm trying to dodge a bit closer, but also as he's coming in towards the HVT, I'm trying to fire my Chain Colt, and I should have known it would be out of range. Again, I was feeling a bit emotional, a bit unhappy about how this game was going, and I made yet another bad decision, which was to Chain Colt, when I should have just been dodging a bit closer. So he does move in there with his Tiger Soldier, and he completes the second classified, which is to move something into close combat with the enemy HVT and pass some sort of check. I can't remember the exact card. I do have a photo of it soon. We'll have a look. Here it is here. HVT Inoculation. A doctor or paramedic in base contact with the enemy HVT model must spend a short skill and succeed a whip +3 check. So that's what he's just done to that HVT. And Extreme Prejudice is the other classified, which he now has. So it's a 2-0. In order to win, since my data tracker has been vaporized, I need to stop him from getting in any more. And I need to somehow get 3 classifieds with my depleted army, which is not going to be easy. Bringing in another Tiger Soldier here, trying to drop it down near my other HVTs, because once you've completed it on one HVT, that one's removed, so you can't keep doing things on that same HVT. So he drops this one in and fails the attempt to land, especially since I've got hack transport, and he has to now deploy it, because it scatters off the table, he has to deploy it on the table edge, so he brings it on right behind the Caliban, which I found an interesting choice. Thing is, though, that if the Caliban tries to turn around, he might be in suppression fire with his Tiger Soldier here by the end of the turn, so we'll see how that goes. Then he opts to bring in yet another drop trooper for some reason at the end of his turn, and his feeling as a newer player is that, a suppression fire is still very strong, so he wants to set them all up, go into suppression fire, and just see what I'm going to do. And look, I mean, I've lost Shishkin, I've lost my Noctifer. The Caliban's not in a great spot, so I don't really have a lot in the way of things that can just shoot and capitalize on models that are out of position, right? So I do have a Flash Pulse in position, but that Flash Pulse will expire by the end of the turn, so Mr. YuJing is fine just to hang out on the side of the table. And then he does it. He officially spends a command token, puts everybody in suppression fire, so both Tiger Soldiers, the YuJing, and this sensor bot all go into suppression fire, and I've taken out some 6-sided dice and marked them as a 3 to show everybody that they can shoot 3 times due to suppression fire. So finally remembering to take a photo, and I really need to rotate this right. Wrong way. What have we got? So at the beginning of my turn, I'm having a careful think about how I can possibly come back into this game. Data scan is one of the available objectives now. Well, I do have my Shrouded Hacker in the middle of the table, and it is near enough to one of his HVTs that I could try it. The problem with doing that is that as soon as I reveal that, he's going to know that I'm attempting to do it, and if I repeatedly fail my attempts to scan the data, and it becomes his turn, he can discard that card. Sabotage is actually luckily doable, because the Caliban, if I recall correctly, does have D-charges on his profile. And I'm luckily right next to a piece of scenery, and I believe that the particular scenery building in question is chosen when the card's drawn, so I can actually do that at the start of my turn. Experimental Drug is going to be a harder one to do, because my doctor isn't really nearby any unconscious things, although it might be worth keeping it around. Notably, he can't complete Experimental Drug because he's lost his Spec Ops, right? So there is that. Okay, Tiger Creatures running towards... I didn't say which one I discarded. I can't remember. I think I actually did go to discard Experimental Drug just because the other two were actually doable that turn, whereas Experimental Drug is sort of like a maybe. So I wanted to go for the ones that were a bit more assured. So Tiger Creature's running towards this guy here. He has Suppression Fire and a multi-rifle. So this Tiger Creature dies, but not before spraying down the Chain Colt and inflicting a wound on the YuJing. The other guy does it as well, gets sprayed down by the Suppression Fire multi-rifle, and the YuJing passes the armor save the second time around. So I didn't do 2 wounds, just the 1 wound, but I had a crack at it. So looking around the board, I realize one viable strategy here for me to recover turn 2 is to split the T-drone out from the link team and fire missiles one at a time at these random Tiger Soldiers. So I'm moving it over here first, and that will allow me to fire my missile long range. It's just 1 dice, but it is hitting on a 15 because he's BS12 plus 3 for long range, and that Tiger Soldier is not really going to be able to do it long range with just the combi rifle, and he'll have to break suppression fire. So fortunately for me, the T-drone lands a missile home onto that Tiger Soldier at the distance, and destroys him. And he's also able to go after this guy because they're sort of facing the wrong way. So T-Drone doing some work, moving and shooting, and blowing up some Tiger soldiers. Once that Tiger in the distance is cleared, the Caliban is not being monitored by any enemy troopers, so he's able to spend an order or two sabotaging this building, putting a point on the board for me on sabotage, which is nice. Over here, after not quite dealing with this Tiger soldier, and I'm pretty sure I moved and then shot from the position I was in this, and that is able to also eliminate this Tiger soldier who's completely facing the wrong way, so we can say goodbye to him. And then, of course, I can move around to take on this guy in the distance, YuJing, who is just hanging out of position on the corner. And a missile long range versus just a multi-rifle gives me the advantage, and I managed to hit home with it and kill him. So T-Drone doing much better work than Shishkin was able to. Caliban only just barely recovering. T-Drone definitely the MVP of Shasvastii this game, and who knew? Who would have expected him to be? Caliban now poking around to the corner and able to have a bit of a shootout with the Yanhuo, who does have neurocynetics and a pistol, but Caliban better off here. Unfortunately for me, tanking the armor saves, and he's just gutsing around into total cover over here. What I can then do is move around here and attack him in close combat. Now, that does mean that he can fire his breaker pistol in at me as I'm coming in, but the Caliban is able to attack the Yanhuo and do enough damage to him, hopefully, that he can recover a wound. I don't have many orders left, though, so I decided to do something kind of desperate here, and that was to move in with the Shrouded and go for the data scan, knowing that if I failed 1 or 2 attempts in a row, I'd run out of orders, my opponent would see what I'm trying to do, realize that he has no hackers, and he would probably immediately discard data scan. Luckily for me, though, it did come up as a hit, and the objective is taken. So, due to a very good recovery turn, we both now have 2 classified cards, and I've somewhat come back into the game because I've eliminated all Tiger soldiers in YuJing, and I've got the Caliban in close combat with the Yanhuo. Alright, so there you go, HVT espionage. In fact, it wasn't even data scan I was going for. I must have discarded that one for some reason. A hacker with the enemy HVT model must spend a short skill and succeed at a -3 whip roll, so it was even worse than that. I had to get a 10 or less on 1 dice with, I think, 1 or 2 attempts, which could very easily have failed. But these are on the board now. So we see this position. There's the Yanhuo locked in close combat with the Caliban. Everybody else is doing fine. We've got the Rushi and the Xian Warrior around here. So Xian Warrior, after considering his options, moves over here and uses the boxes to climb up in the building. And what he's going to be doing is he's going to be firing his HMG into this close combat. And the thinking there is that the Caliban can only sustain 1 wound, and the Yanhuo can probably tank a lot of the wounds that would otherwise be taken. So he moves up here, rips into the close combat with his HMG a couple of times, and unbelievably destroys his own Yanhuo. Wacky game. A lot of variants. This does mean that the Caliban can now push out of close combat, but then he just shoots at the Caliban and destroys the Caliban. So, I'm not unhappy about this outcome. I mean, I can't expect to have the Caliban live, but for him to destroy his own Yanhuo in the process and have no way of reviving it is a huge win for me. So that was wonderful. He's now, for some reason, moving his Rushi out as well, just to provide an additional long-range arrow. Not that it's any good at long-range arrows, but we've got him sitting right there. I also want you guys to note the position of my Shrouded Hacker. If it stands up, it's going to be in line of sight of 2 MSV2 troopers, which is not really ideal, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, so suppression fire, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's gunning for it. My turn 3. Here are my choices. Data scan, well, that's all fine and good, but I've got to do it on an enemy trooper. And if I move the Shrouded anywhere, it's just going to get blasted because everything's covering its position. Even if I go downstairs and out of the building, it'll just take too long. So that one's going to be hard. In extremis recovery means that I have to go into an enemy trooper and kill it and pass a whip +3, but I've lost my Caliban now. And all my other stuff's just way over the other side of the table. I've got nothing that can really close the distance, so that one's going to be really hard. And then rescue, Case Vac, an allied trooper. And I decided to discard one of the other ones and try for rescue in my final turn to try and push forward into the lead, because otherwise it's going to be a draw or possibly a win to him if he gets one in his final turn. Initially, upon reading it, we thought, oh, okay, I just case vac by case vacking one of my nearby troopers and moving it through. But then I realized, oh shit, actually you've got to do it on one of your own unconscious troopers. So we spent a couple of orders doing the rules wrong and then just rolled it back. So this photo is not a legit actual occurrence. So we rolled that back. What I decided instead was to move out with the T-drone, reform the link team, and then try to move in and try and clobber the Rushi. So I had to blow that guy up first, then move forward and go after the bounty hunter sniper. And I thought what that might allow me to do is just move into a position where I'd cause so much damage to his stuff, and my Spec Ops would be in behind. I might be able to get a hack in on the last-ditch effort, or if he shot back at me and rendered something unconscious, I might be able to case vac. So we do all of that, and we come through, and the T-drone moves out with his link lead, and the Rushi is destroyed. But then he goes after the bounty hunter sniper and loses. So the luck swinging back at me again, and the T-drone just going down. Interestingly though, and this is the point here where we're just going after him with the sniper being on that tower up there and the T-drone being there and cutting a fine line over to where his position is. But T-drone losing that one despite having the support of the link team and despite having assisted fire. So I thought, well, what if I do this? What if the Shrouded stands up and desperately tries to shoot his bounty hunter? Because I'm trying to close the gap here. So I'm standing up with my Shrouded, who gets promptly ripped up by the Xianwarian suppression fire, but I'm able to fire my Shrouded at his bounty hunter and luckily managed to kill it, which is important. The reason why it's so important is that my Spec Ops trooper can now move towards this guy, the T-drone, who's in an unconscious state, and case vac him. The only problem is that there's still a bot over here, a sensor bot, which has got a flash pulse. So as I'm moving in to try and case vac him, I'm having to fire back at this bot or dodge it or whatever, and unfortunately I get blinded, so I can't actually case vac the bot, which is really annoying. So that didn't work. Last ditch attempt here with this forward observer, moving again to the bot, case vacking it this time, just barely. And I'm able to move across here, and my opponent does make a mistake here, which we're going to have to forgive him for. He is not very experienced. So moving and case vacking my guy, and then moving over here, and he again attempts to flash pulse me, not realizing that it won't really make a difference. If I'm flash pulsed, I'm not really going to drop the case vac trooper, as far as I know at least. But if he fired his combi rifle, that would have been a different story. So I managed to get behind this building with a case vac T-drone. I assume that's possible. I believe you just have to have the same or greater physical strength as the thing you're case vacking. And we're in a spot now where I've got 3 classified points to his 2. So there you go. Rescue's in there as well, and that's my group. And then you can see the T-drone and the Nox trooper in the middle here who have case vac'd to the correct position. So there we are. Everybody's hanging out, just really waiting for the end of the game. Now my opponent has, I think, 3 orders left plus the lieutenant order, something like that. So there's the Xian Warrior is alive, the Sensor Bot is alive, and he's got one more thing. I can't remember what it was. I think the Bounty Hunter's dead, isn't it? He may have had 2, may have had 3 orders, but he also has a lieutenant order. Anyway, he realizes the only way for him to win is to jump off the building, run towards the position of the unconscious Shrouded Assault Hacker, and do that coup de grace on it. We talked earlier about one of the available cards was this card back here. In Extremis Recovery. So, coup de grace at +3 whip. So you have to make a roll for it. So, it was going to be close either way, but he jumps off the building, takes fall damage, fails the first armor save, passes the second armor save. Then he's moving in, and what he's got to try and do with the remaining 2 orders or 3 orders, I can't remember what it was, is he's got to move 8 inches with a move towards the boxes, and then he's going to move up the boxes enough, and then he's going to do another move into base contact. So yeah, I think he would have had 3 orders remaining to do this. And if he's in range, and if he passes a willpower +3, then he wins. Sorry, it becomes a draw at that point, because he'd have 3 to my 3. So we had to measure it really carefully, and it was really, really close. At the end of the day, we couldn't quite give it to him, and I want to explain why, because maybe he could have done it. I'm not 100% sure. As you can see from this ruler, 6 inches gets him to there, and then another 2 inches means that he's going to be finishing his movement on this yellow box. When we measured it, 4 inches wasn't going to take him from that box all the way over around here to the shrouded. It just wasn't quite enough. Secondarily, we weren't even sure if he could make it to the yellow box. The thinking is that when you're in the middle of a move, you can end your model, you move on a flat surface, but you can't end your model like with half of its silhouette, dangling off the side of a wall. Your whole base has got to be on top of something, I believe. I'm pretty sure, I don't know whereabouts in the rules that is, or if it even is in the rules, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. Look at this little black cube over here, right? Could the Cien Warrior climb on top of it and have half of his base on top of it and the other half of his base dangling in the air? Most people would say that you can't really do that. Similarly, as you're moving over boxes and things, you're not allowed to just move over thin air unless you have super jump. So in the case of this green building over there, if you're standing in this position, you can't move directly over to the bridge because part of your movement would be off the building. You could if you had super jump or maybe climbing plus coming around here, but if you just have normal movement, you would have to take a more of an L shape, right? So coming over to the box over here, he's actually got to really take quite an L shape going across. And between orders, I don't believe he can end his order like partially on the yellow box and partially off it. And because there wasn't enough speed to get fully onto the yellow box, he couldn't end his first order on there, meaning that the order after that would take longer for him to get up there. We talked to the tournament organizer about it, and at the end of the day, we decided to rule that he couldn't make it to the shrouded. I felt a bit guilty about it because I wasn't 100% sure whether he could or could not do that personally. And secondarily, I felt like I'd sort of made mistakes during this game and had such a weird one of it that he kind of deserved the win, like given that he was a bit newer and he'd really tried hard to win this game. But at the end of the day, we called it, and it was a 3-2 in terms of the cards to Shasvastii. But because of this, the weird nature of this mission, it turned out to be a blowout because as soon as you have more cards than the other guy, you get another 4 points. So in this case, it was like a 7-2 victory, which again I felt uncomfortable with. The mission is designed in a way that it's sort of feast to famine. You never have a really close game in a lot of cases unless like one player has done it with a data tracker and the other one hasn't. But in a lot of cases, this mission is going to see results of like 8-2 or 7-1 or whatever it might be. Yeah, I don't know if I really love that. So the mission can result in some really good games. A lot of the time it is, but sometimes the mission is just going to unfortunately rob people who are playing better than their opponents, which I'm not a big fan of. Anyway, this was a really jammy game. I think it would have been a pretty convincing win to me if I just had some pretty average luck, with my Caliban and Shishkin, but that didn't happen. It was just the good fortune of the T-drone that was able to bring me back into it. But we'll move on to the next one, Game 3, pretty soon. Thanks for sticking around.